Hello everyone, I can see you all joining slowly, so we're just going to have a couple of minutes while everyone comes in to the lesson, and then we will get started once almost everyone's here. Okay. So I think we have quite a few people here now. So I think we'll start. So welcome to the final session today for MyTutor online school. This session is GCSE Biology. And our subject today is respiration. I can see a few people joining slowly, so keep going for there. So if you have attended the MyTutor online school before and had biology lessons, you might recognise me. I'm Charlotte. I've taken all of the lessons so far for GCSE Biology. I have completed over 150 lessons for MyTutor over the last few years, and I've studied conservation and biodiversity at the University of Exeter for my master's degree. I also have an undergraduate in general biology, so I have quite a wide experience. Okay, so today we are going to look at respiration some more. So last Friday we looked at respiration and we had a quiz. So we complete content from the AQA biology specification, but don't worry if you're not studying AQA or you're not sure what you'll be studying next year, or if you're just using this as a recap for A-level, all of that's completely fine. We keep it quite general, we cover general topics, so all of this will be useful, whatever you're doing. So yes, last time we started respiration and we had a quiz. So don't worry if you weren't here on Friday, we're going to have a quick recap of it today. And then we're going to finish up with metabolism and the liver, and that will finish respiration for us. So then today we're going to do a bit of exam technique, so how to answer different types of question, which I hope you'll find useful. So last time we looked at the process of respiration and the equation for respiration, and we talked through how to balance it. So respiration is when we use glucose and oxygen and we convert it into carbon dioxide and water. So we looked at that, we looked at why we respire, and we respire to provide energy to our muscles and other parts of our body in the form of ATP. And then we also looked at anaerobic respiration. So what happens when you don't have enough oxygen and how you can convert glucose to lactic acid as kind of a middleman before you finish converting it to carbon dioxide and water. Okay, so let's carry on with the content for today. You've all got a Q&A and a chat buttons at the bottom of your screen. Open those up. If you have questions at any time, pop them in the Q&A. That'd be really great. Anything else? So for example, we're going to have a mini quiz today. If you pop the answers to that in the chat, and then that will make it easier for me to find the questions in the Q&A. And I think now that everyone pretty much is here, we'll start doing content. Hello to everyone that's just joined. Okay, so let's move on to today's content. Okay, so I wanted to start with kind of a quick recap through this diagram and then talk about what happens to the energy formed by respiration reactions in cells. So you can see in this diagram here, respiration is when glucose and oxygen are converted to carbon dioxide and water in animals and plants. And they've included this other part of the diagram at the top, which is where glucose and oxygen are the product of photosynthesis in plants. So you can kind of see how in plants, photosynthesis and respiration are the same in reverse. So for plants, they make their own food through photosynthesis, whereas for ourselves and animals, we need to eat to get that glucose. From respiration, we produce, here it's called ATP. This is the energy that we use for movement, for molecular transport, they've said here, and for synthesis of biomolecules, which is putting together and breaking down molecules. And it's ATP that provides the energy to do that. And it does that through a reaction where it breaks down into something called ADP and P. You will learn more about that at A-level if you're going on to A-level biology. For now, you don't need to know the specifics of that. You just need to know that ATP is how energy is expressed. So the heat and the energy, the ATP from respiration, heats the environment, creates movement via muscle contraction. So all of our muscle cells have lots of mitochondria, so we can do lots of respiration, because respiration takes place in the mitochondria in our cells. So they can complete lots of respiration in order to provide lots of energy for moving. The energy is also used for maintaining a constant body temperature, which we need to do as mammals. We're going to talk about that more on Friday. And also for metabolic reactions, which, as I said, is making molecules or breaking them down. Just a little bit about movement via muscle contraction. So last week, if you weren't here on Friday, we went through what happens when we exercise. So when we exercise, we need to create more energy. So we need to respire more. And when you go running, one of the first things that happens is that your breathing rate increases. You want to breathe more, and your heart rate also increases. And both of those things are to encourage more oxygen to our muscle cells. So oxygen is carried in the blood, and it comes from when we breathe in, we take in oxygen in the air, and then gas exchange takes place in the lungs. From the lungs, gas exchange takes place, the oxygen moves into the blood and then is transported around the body via our circulation. At the same time, the products of respiration, so carbon dioxide and water, are taken away from the cells where respiration is occurring and going back to the lungs where carbon dioxide is breathed out. So a quick recap there of that one. So today, we wanted to talk about how that links to metabolism. And as we've just mentioned, metabolism is the breaking down and the building up of molecules. And officially, metabolism is described as the sum of all the reactions that take place in a cell or in the body. And then we've got lots of examples here of how that takes place. So our cells complete lots and lots and lots of reactions every day in order to keep us functioning. So respiration is part of that. So the converting of glucose and oxygen to carbon dioxide and water. Also the formation of lipids from fatty acids and glycerol. So we talked about that when we covered digestion a few weeks ago, but lipids, which are one of the key components of our food, are formed from fatty acids and glycerol that we get from our food. Also the conversion of glucose to starch, cellulose and glycogen. So we talked briefly about starch and cellulose last week. That's how glucose is stored in plants. And then also glycogen, which is how glucose is stored in ourselves, so animals. And we talked about that as being a bit like a fridge. It's a kind of ready store of glucose. So you can just go there, you can convert the glycogen back to glucose, and it's there ready to use for respiration when you need more. Photosynthesis is another set of reactions that take place in the plant cell. We can also use glucose and nitrate to make amino acids, and they're then used to form proteins. So we're talking about proteins, fats, and carbohydrates here through all of this. And finally, the breakdown of excess proteins in the liver to form urea for excretion in the urine by the kidneys. And we haven't really talked about this much as part of the online school, so you might have learnt about it when you are at school. But we're going to talk about that, I think, the week after next. So if you're not sure what that means, don't worry, we are going to go over it a bit more. Okay, liver and oxygen debt. So last week we talked about the oxygen debt that is built up when we exercise a lot and we're not very fit, and we need to complete that anaerobic respiration that we talked about. So anaerobic respiration is the conversion of glucose to lactic acid, and it leaves this oxygen debt, which is why after exercise, it takes a while for your breathing rate to slow down, because your body still needs that oxygen to finish converting that lactic acid into carbon dioxide and water. So you take in more even after you've finished exercising. Okay, so the liver is where this final breakdown of lactic acid takes place. And I wanted to talk about the liver a little bit here because it's an organ that you probably haven't learned that much about yet. And you'll learn a lot more about it at A level if you take that on. So the liver is where poisonous substances such as alcohol are detoxified. So the liver breaks down the alcohol. It also breaks down old blood cells, and then it stores the iron until it's needed for more blood cells. So it's a store of that as well. It's quite a kind of, it's very much a working organ. It's where a lot of the kind of hard work is done. So it detoxifies stuff, breaks down the old blood cells so that we've got more iron to make new ones. It's very active in lots of metabolic functions. The cells of the liver grow and regenerate quite quickly compared to the rest of our bodies, which is quite key because, so particularly when we're talking about alcohol use, so alcohol is famous for not being very good for your liver. And if you keep alcohol intake to a bit of moderation, then the cells of the liver can grow and regenerate fairly quickly and overcome that abuse from alcohol. The liver is also where breakdown products are passed into the blood so that they can be excreted via the kidney, as we said before. So urea is the main one there. And it also deals with lactic acid, which is formed during anaerobic respiration. And that's where we're interested in it for today. Okay. So how does it do that? How does the liver get rid of that oxygen debt? So we've been exercising. We have been exercising really hard, so we've had to resort to anaerobic respiration because we just couldn't get enough oxygen to the muscles to keep up with the amount of respiration that we needed to do to provide the energy that we needed. So got a bit of a buildup of lactic acid. Anaerobic respiration isn't as efficient as aerobic respiration, so it doesn't produce as much energy per reaction. And that means that we do have quite a buildup of lactic acid. We had to produce quite a lot of it to keep up with our body's demands. That lactic acid is transported by the blood from the muscles to the liver. So you remember the blood is carrying away all of the waste products of respiration. So it's taking away the carbon dioxide in the water from aerobic respiration and also the lactic acid from anaerobic respiration. We breathe out the carbon dioxide, the lactic acid is taken to the liver. At the liver, lactic acid is converted back to glucose. This is very neat, isn't it? Because then we can use the glucose again. Our bodies are really, really clever like this. So the glucose is broken down by aerobic respiration to carbon dioxide and water. And if that glucose isn't needed immediately for more respiration, we can store it in the liver as glycogen. So remember, glycogen is present in muscle cells, but also in the liver as well. So we've got lots of glucose stores across the body. Got a good graph here. So you can see oxygen consumption on the y-axis, and then over time. So as we're exercising, we accumulate this oxygen debt, this solid line here. You can see the oxygen deficit there at the top, so that's how much we're short. And then when we stop exercising, which is at this line here, our breathing rate continues. So we're taking in lots more oxygen, and in our liver, we can then break down. So the lactic acid is converted to glucose, and then the glucose is broken down by aerobic respiration into carbon dioxide and water. So we kind of finish off that process. And so the oxygen debt decreases over time. Okay, so I think before we do a mini quiz, I'm going to give you a chance to ask some questions. If you've got any questions, we haven't really talked about kind of where everyone is today. I hope everyone's well. It's a very sunny Monday here. I hope it's the same wherever you are in the world. So any questions about aerobic respiration? If you pop them in the Q&A, that would be great. So I can see hi, quite a few people saying hi in the chat. Hi everyone, it's good to see you today. Okay, couple of questions so far. So, is the product of respiration formed as sweat? No, it's not. I can see why you would think that, because obviously when we sweat, that's water, and water is a waste product of respiration. But no, the water that... So our bodies use water for all sorts of things. I mean, to stay hydrated, so to keep our cells well hydrated. We did talk about water movement in and out of cells when we discussed osmosis, but our cells need a constant kind of movement of water in and out to keep the concentrations of solutes constant within the cells. We also, water is the basis of our blood, so we need water for that. And so it's not directly released as sweat. It might be if you got hot, but not directly. Oh, someone's saying, can I go back to slide 2? Yes, no problem. It's quite a small diagram, this. I hope you can see it. I'll try and zoom in on it. Oh, now it doesn't all fit in one page, typical. Let's try it a little smaller. Oh. That's a little bit better. Okay, what is urea is the next one. So as I said, we're going to talk more about urea next week. So urea is our way of our body excreting any waste products, basically. So urea is a waste product from lots of different reactions, mainly from the control of water balance in the kidney, which we're going to talk about more. So urea is excreted in urine. So it's a compound, urea. You'll come across it quite a lot through biology. And like I say, we'll talk about this kind of more next week and in more detail, so it makes more sense. But for now, urea is a compound. It's created in the kidneys, and then it is excreted in urine. Okay, slide 3. You can catch up there. Sam had a good question. So how is it significant? Why is oxygen debt important to know? Good question. Hayden has replied saying because it's part of the curriculum, which is completely true. You do need to know this for your exams, but it's also useful for life in general. So for example, when you're exercising and you feel really out of breath, you can now understand kind of why, why it's good to be quite fit to do exercise quite regularly, because then you don't build up so much of this oxygen debt. Also, if you have friends that have asthma, you can understand more about why they have problems with their breathing, particularly when they run. It's all to do with getting oxygen into the blood, into those muscle cells. So all sorts of different situations, it's useful to understand this. Will Friday's biology be on YouTube today? It should be on the online school. Double check. I'm not sure how quickly they're getting them up, but you should see it on the online school website. So if you want to catch up, I appreciate it's been a bit of a kind of fast catching up with the first respiration session today. So by all means, go there and catch up. Okay, excreting. Someone's asked what's excreting. Excreting is when we expel things from our bodies. Some people are saying it's not on the website yet. I'm not quite sure how long they're taking at the moment.
Hey everyone, it's Georgia, my tutor here. Hiya. I will have a look into that for you guys. Thanks for flagging it. We should be able to put that up for you very soon.
Fab, great. Okay, so hopefully that answers your questions, guys, because it would be, yeah, really good to use that to catch up. I have kind of summarized it all today, but it's good to kind of work through it a bit more slowly and in detail. Okay, a couple more in the chat as well. So does oxygen help revive our energy? Well, oxygen, it does make us feel like we've revived our energy because it gets rid of, well, it doesn't get rid of, so oxygen obviously is a part of respiration. We need respiration to create energy. So taking in oxygen allows our bodies to produce more energy so that we can do more things. Oxygen also allows us to clear that oxygen debt after exercise, and therefore we feel like we have recovered from that exercise. So our breathing slowly returns to normal, our heart rate goes down. You know, if you go for a sprint, afterwards you feel like kind of rubbish for a while your body's getting rid of that lactic acid and returning itself to normal, clearing that oxygen debt. So I suppose in a way, yes, oxygen does help revive our energy. Is it used in the reaction to create glucose? So depends what you're talking, what kind of organism you're talking about there. So for plants, they create glucose through photosynthesis. So the conversion of carbon dioxide from the air and water from the environment into glucose and oxygen. That's how plants make their glucose. For us, we get glucose from the food that we eat. So we take in food, our food has sugars in it. Glucose is a sugar, a carbohydrate, and then our bodies break that down through our digestive system into molecules of glucose that can then be transported in the blood to cells for respiration. That's the kind of chain of events here. Okay, can I explain the graph again for oxygen debt? Yes, absolutely. Yeah, sugar for energy, Aerobic. Great. That is essentially it. Okay, so we did have a graph for oxygen debt last Friday as well. And I'm wondering, I might just pull that one up as well, because it's a better one than this one. I should have just used the same one, but I've just noticed that they're different. I thought that they were the same. So here are the slides from last week. Here we are. I'll just copy this over and then we can compare the two. Okay, let's make that tiny bit smaller and then hopefully we can get them both on the same page. Okay, so both of these graphs have oxygen consumption on the y-axis. And you can see on both of them, they have this oxygen consumption increase with the solid line here. So this is when you're sprinting. You're breathing harder, your blood is moving around your body faster because your heart rate has increased. So you're getting that oxygen to your cells as quick as you can. So you're taking in that oxygen, but the square here represents how much oxygen you're short. So your muscles are respiring really, really quickly. They're trying to get you as much energy as possible so you can complete that sprint. But it's not enough. They can't do it quick enough. So oxygen deficit is how much oxygen you're short of. And you make up that by respiring anaerobically, so without air, without oxygen. So anaerobically, which means you convert the glucose straight to lactic acid. You then, when you finish your exercise, so you can see on the bottom graph, exercise finishes and then recovery starts. So you finished your sprint, you finished, you did great, you won the race. Your breathing is still high. You're still breathing quite hard. Your heart's still going. Sometimes we feel a bit sick, all of those things. That is our bodies getting rid of that oxygen debt. So making up for that oxygen deficit. So what we just described, that lactic acid is transported in the blood to the liver, and then in the liver, the lactic acid is broken down into glucose, and then the glucose is respired to carbon dioxide and water. So that's us getting rid of that oxygen debt. So we're using up oxygen during recovery to finish the respiration that we could only do part way. Does that make a bit more sense? I hope so. Pop up the Q&A again so that I can see. Someone's just asked, what's the difference between anaerobic and aerobic respiration? So definitely recommend watching the lesson from last Friday for kind of more detail on this, but it is, the difference is that aerobic respiration, which is our normal respiration, uses oxygen from the air. That's how I remember it. Aerobic respiration uses oxygen from the air. Whereas anaerobic respiration is when we don't have enough oxygen. So we're converting that glucose straight to lactic acid without using oxygen. So I'm just gonna real quick pop up a text box with those equations in so you can kind of have a look at them. So glucose plus oxygen okay. Let's move that on. So this is aerobic respiration. Let's write that at the beginning. Okay. And then anaerobic respiration. Glucose is converted straight to lactic acid. Well worth watching last Friday's lesson when it's up on the MyTutor online school site, because there's a kind of a little bit more detail about how this works in different organisms. So quite often anaerobic respiration is described as fermentation, and certainly yeast use fermentation. We use yeast and the process of fermentation, anaerobic respiration, that takes place by yeast to create alcohol. That's how we create beer from wheat. So anaerobic respiration is surprisingly useful. Okay, Sam has some really good comments there that I'm just going to paste in to the chat as well, so that everyone can see them. So he says that, sorry Sam, I don't know whether you're a boy or a girl, but we say that anaerobic is respiration without oxygen. So aerobic is respiration in the presence of oxygen, and the best way to remember is aerobic is air, and anaerobic prefix an means that it's not in the presence of oxygen. That's exactly how I remember it as well. But remember it any way that suits you best. Do we need to remember the data such as the lipid molecule is made up by 1 glycerol and 3 fatty acids? So yes, so we cover that during the digestion module, which we've kind of gone over in the MyTutor online school, so it'd be well worth popping back and watching those videos if you can. But you'll cover that so many times by the end that lipids are made up of glycerol and 3 fatty acids that you will know it off by heart, so don't worry too much about that. They were just examples of the kind of reactions that take place and that make up metabolism, or what we call metabolism in our bodies. Where can humans get nitrate from? We get them from food, or it's derived from food. So everything that we take in, so nitrate is kind of a vitamin or mineral that's present in some of our foods. Okay, let's have a mini quiz. So answers in the chat for these. First question, what is the definition of metabolism? Do you remember that? It was in red on slide 2. Pop your answers in the chat. Okay, Sam has popped an answer in. Anyone else want to give any answers? Pop them in the chat. Yes, another one from Kasaya. That's a good point as well. Any more? Good. Fatima. Yes, a few more. Nice one, Grace. Okay, let's pop to the slide. Nice. Okay, so metabolism is the sum of all the reactions that take place in a cell or in the body. So well done. Grace, you're right as well. Metabolism is the chemical processes that occur within a living organism. That's correct as well. Well done. Fatima got that one as well. Kasai said the rate of how quickly your body uses energy. That's really interesting because actually when we talk about metabolism, we say, oh, my metabolism is really quick. It converts energy really quickly. So sometimes we do use it in that way, but strictly speaking, metabolism is kind of a collective word for all of the reactions that take place in the body. Okay, let's do question 2. So A, B, C, or D, which of these is not a function of the liver? So A, detoxifying poisonous substances, B, gas exchange, C, reducing oxygen debt, or D, passing breakdown products to the blood to be excreted. A, B, C, or D? Oh, loads of you answering this one. Brilliant. Well done, everyone. Well done, Hayden, Fatima, Zaima, Grace, Kasaya. Nice. The correct answer was B. So gas exchange takes place in the lungs, not the liver. And 3. What is the name of the substance that glucose can be stored as in muscle or liver cells? A few of you have answered this already, I have seen in the chat. Well done. G. You have that one right. Any more? Yes, well done, Kasai, that's right. Well done, Javita, for question 2. That's correct, B is right. What's the next? Question 3, what is the name of the substance that glucose can be stored as in muscle or liver cells? Yes, well done, Fatima, that's right. Any more answers before I reveal? Good. The answer is, oh, a few more coming in. Well done, everyone. So the answer is glycogen. Well done, everyone that got that one right. Loads of you. Brilliant. So glycogen is, like we say, it's kind of like the fridge for glucose. So basically glycogen is lots of glucose molecules all stuck together, and when you need extra glucose, so for example when you're sprinting and the glucose that's coming in the blood from our digestion isn't enough, we can just open that fridge, we can break down the glycogen and use it for exercise. So that's why it's usually oxygen that's that limit, that means that we have to go to anaerobic respiration, because it's very rare that we don't have enough glucose. Okay, I hope all of that makes sense. So one more question. How many more weeks are there left of the MyTutor free lessons? Will they carry on for a while, or are they beginning to come to an end? So I think MyTutor are talking about this at the moment, and we'll see. So the answer is that I don't know at the moment, but they will be putting information out about that. So don't worry about them just coming to an end with you not being let know. There will be information about that. Hopefully a lot longer. I'm enjoying them. Okay, so let's move on to the second part of today. So I wanted to spend a bit of time talking about exam technique, because we haven't done that for a while. So every couple of weeks I throw in a kind of half an hour on exam technique to make sure that everyone that tunes in sees it at some point. So today we're going to talk about exam technique, and we're going to use respiration questions. So what I do for these kind of little sessions is we talk about different types of question that might come up, and we have a look at mark schemes as well, so you can all see exactly what they're looking for. Again, this is AQA, but the format and the things that they're looking for in mark schemes is the same for all exam boards, so no problem there. Oh, thanks, Fatima. I can see you just started today. I'm sorry that you've come in halfway through. Those of you that didn't see Friday's lesson, definitely go back and watch the other one. You've definitely heard most of it today. We've gone through it, but not quite in such a kind of logical way as we did on Friday, so worth looking. Okay, so let's start. This is kind of an experimental question. So for respiration, this is a prime topic for experimental questions. So questions that test your scientific thinking and also your knowledge of respiration as well. So the first thing that we always do when we are looking at a question is underline the keywords. And I always say this because, and I have done this lots of times when I've been talking through past questions in these lessons, it is so easy to misread them, or for me to mistype things. So it's always worth underlining the keywords. And it can really help when you're in an exam if you're quite rushed, because you really don't want to miss those simple 1-mark questions that you know, and everyone knows that you know, but you've just misread it because you're in a rush. So underlining helps to stop that. So scientists investigated how exercise affects blood flow to different organs in the body. Okay, so we've read that and we're already thinking, okay, blood flow, gas exchange, respiration, all of those topics. The scientists made measurements of blood flow to different organs of a person resting in a room, resting is a key word there, at 20 degrees C, and then the same person in the same room doing vigorous exercise at constant speed on an exercise cycle. And then we've got a table of results here. Oops. So when we're looking at a table, first thing to do is to go through the headings. So we've got organ on the left-hand side here. Blood flow in centimeters cubed per minute whilst resting or doing vigorous exercise. So we've got the volume of blood flowing past presumably a certain point per minute. In the brain, the heart, the muscles, the skin, and then other. Could be anywhere. So if we have a look at that table, it's good to have a quick look, see what the key differences are before you read the question. So we've got the same amount for the brain, the heart, we've got a lot more doing vigorous exercise, which is what we would expect given what we've just learned. More in the muscles, slightly more blood flow in the skin when exercising, and a lot less in other parts of the body. It's a really, really good representation there of what happens to our bodies when we exercise. Really worth thinking through all the reasons behind that. Okay, so in this investigation, it was better to do the exercise indoors on an exercise cycle than to go cycling outdoors on the road. Suggest 2 reasons why. Do not include safety reasons. By all means, answer these in the chat if you want to. I'll give you a couple of minutes and then we will reveal the answer. Well, not a couple of minutes. I'll give you a few seconds. I'm glad so many people are enjoying the lessons. I'm sorry we don't have a quiz today. We have got a quiz on Friday. If you want to tune in on Friday, we've got a quiz then. Okay, let's look at the answers. So what I've done is I've written model answer in red there. So you could have any of those 3. So constant speed, constant effort, or constant temperature, as Grace has popped in the chat. So being indoors means that you can control those things. You can't control them outdoors. And when we're doing an experiment, it's important that they're directly comparable. So it means you can keep that temperature to 20 degrees C, for example, whereas outside it might be windy and feel a bit cooler. And you can also keep the speed of the exercise bike constant, or the effort that you're putting in, which comes from the speed of the bike as well. So good thoughts there. That's an example of thinking through good scientific techniques. So making sure that your experiments are directly comparable, that you have a relevant control, all of those things. Okay, so here's the table again. Sorry, I keep moving the screen. I don't think you need to see the top bit. Let's underline the keywords of these questions. So blood flow to one organ did not change between resting and vigorous exercise. Which organ? Pop your answers in the chat quickly. If you don't want everyone else to see them, then pop them in. So set it to just all panelists and then only I can see it. And Georgia at MyTutor. Nice, well done. Those of you that have answered so far, you've all got it right. Kasaya, Z, Sarabi, Fatima, well done. Apologies if my pronunciation of your name is not fab. I'm sorry about that. Well done, Grace. Yes, the answer is the brain. You can see at the top there, that one's not changing. It remains 750 centimeters cubed per minute. How much more blood flowed to the muscles during vigorous exercise than when resting? Muscles is the key word there. So we go to the row muscles on the table. Then we need to calculate how much more flowed during vigorous exercise than when resting. It's in the chat. Okay, well done, Sam, so far. Well done, Kasaya. Fatima saying that Sam was correct. Yes. Done Byron and Grace as well. Good. Is taking one away from the other. Well done. So here is the answers in my red pen. 22,000 minus 1,200 gives 20,800. Well done, everyone. Those, again, really nice, simple questions. You know, it didn't ask you to work out the average, just wanted you to take one away from the other. So well worth reading those correctly and making sure you've got those marks in the bag. That one was worth 2 marks. So well worth doing. Okay, next one. So name 2 substances needed in larger amounts by the muscles during vigorous exercise than when resting. 2 marks for this, so 1 mark for each thing that you can think of that's needed by the muscles when exercising a lot rather than when resting. 2 substances. Well done, loads of people putting the right. Yes, well done, Hayden. It's one of them. Great, loads of people put those in, brilliant. And then finally, we'll reveal the answers on the next page, but one more. So tick 1 box to complete the sentence. The substances you named in part C, 2, which is what you've just talked about up there, helped the muscles to, your options are make more lactic acid, respire aerobically, or make more glycogen. Any of those. Tick 1 box, and remember it is just 1. Okay, well done everyone. Yep, respire aerobically. So oxygen and glucose were the 2 substances. Well done everyone that got those. And then respire aerobically was correct for the second one there. So again, these are all very, very quick questions. They're worth 1 or 2 marks. They're just testing your knowledge. These are the marks that's well worth getting in the bag. Okay, another one here. This is continuing on. This is a very long question, this one, about this experiment. But it all leads on one to the other, and it's really nice because it's just those 1 and 2 mark questions. But it tests your knowledge about respiration, it tests your knowledge of experimental technique, and it's a really easy way to get those marks. So, the higher rate of blood flow to the muscles during exercise removed larger amounts of waste products made by the muscles. Makes sense? Which 2 substances need to be removed from the muscles in larger amounts during vigorous exercise? 2 substances. Your choices, and you need to tick 2 boxes this time: amino acids, carbon dioxide, glycogen, and lactic acid. Well done. Good. Loads of people getting those right, well done. And then part D, before we turn over to reveal the answers again. The total blood flow was much higher during exercise than when resting. Okay. One way to increase the total blood flow is for the heart to pump out a larger volume of blood each beat. Larger volume is the key word there. Give one other way to increase the blood flow. So you've got the heart pumping out more blood. each time it pumps? What other way can you increase the blood flow? Again, 1 mark for this. Oops. Well done, Grace. That one was right. Anyone else care to pop a answer in there? Okay, here are the answers. So well done, everyone that put down carbon dioxide and lactic acid. Brilliant. Those are the two substances that would be their waste products of photosynthesis, of respiration, not photosynthesis. So carbon dioxide is taken away from the muscles and lactic acid as well when we respire anaerobically. And increasing the heart rate was the other way to increase the blood flow. So you can increase the volume of blood being given out with each beat, but you could also increase how many beats per minute of the heart you have, so increase the rate. That one was a little bit more tricky. Okay, so I also wanted to do a question about things that weren't animals or plants. So here we're talking about a fungus. So this needs you to think about respiration in the context of a fungus. So it's something a little bit more unfamiliar. So the diagram shows a fermenter. The fermenter is used for growing the fungus Fusarium, and Fusarium is used to make a mycoprotein. So have a good look at the diagram. It's always worth looking through a diagram, getting a little bit familiar with it before you even approach a question on it. So we can see it's got A, B, and C written on it. So we've got A, we've got compressed air going in. This then travels up, carbon dioxide is removed. And it goes back down, glucose and minerals are removed here at B. At C, we've got cold water going in and warm water going out. And then in a purified chamber, you've got steam coming off and then the mycoprotein harvested. Lots of different parts here. So I've kept the diagram there as a bit of a reminder. Bubbles of air enter the fermenter at A. Give two functions of air bubbles in a fermenter. Why would air bubbles be needed? Good. Loads of people putting ideas in. Well done. Okay, and then we'll just have a quick look at the next one. Why is glucose added to the fermenter? Two marks for the first, 1 mark for the second. Makes sense. We'll have a quick look at that one. A couple of people asking why I have the tabs up for quizzes if we're not going to do one today. The answer is that I always have those tabs up for lessons in case I want to use them. I have got one planned for Friday, so tune in on Friday for a quiz. You need to learn other stuff first before we get quizzed on it, but that will happen on Friday. But today we're doing exam technique. We had a mini quiz. I appreciate that it was fun. Okay, answers to those. Well, oops, keep doing that. Well done to everyone that got those right. So the two functions of the air bubbles were supplying oxygen for faster respiration. Well done, everyone that put those down. and circulating to maintain the temperature. And then why is glucose added to the fermenter? To provide an energy supply or to be used in respiration. So glucose is the energy supply that's used in respiration. So glucose is broken down to produce energy. So the circulating to maintain the temperature, I think, was slightly less obvious there. That one I think is quite hard to get, particularly when there's what looks like a temperature control at the bottom. But yes, having those air bubbles means that there's that more increased circulation for maintaining the temperature. Okay, 3 one-mark questions again. So these are short, sharp questions. The fermenter is prevented from overheating by the cold water flowing in through the heat exchanger coils at C. Name the process that causes the fermenter to heat up. We did talk about this briefly today. And then part D, it's important to prevent microorganisms other than Fusarium growing in the fermenter. Why is this important? So suggest a reason why it's important to prevent other microorganisms growing in the fermenter. Also, suggest one way in which contamination of the fermenter by microorganisms could be prevented. Okay. Well done those that are popping answers in the chat. Brilliant. Well done. Okay, so the process that causes the fermenter to heat up was respiration. So respiration produces energy, and energy heats things up. So that's something that we talked about briefly at the start of today. But you need to remember that the production of energy produces heat because it's an exothermic reaction, so it gives out heat as well as energy. Why is it important to prevent other microorganisms? So here you had several options. So they may compete with the Fusarium for food or oxygen, or they may make toxic waste products or be harmful to people in some other way. So mycoprotein is for human consumption, so you don't want anything else in there that might be harmful. And you also don't want any competition for that fungus. You just want to grow that and as much of that as possible. One way in which contamination of the fermenter by microorganisms could be prevented would be to sterilize, and you could sterilize any part of it. So when I looked at the mark scheme for this, it was literally just sterilize and then a whole list of things. So you can sterilize the fermenter, you can sterilize the mineral or nutrients that were used, the water, the air intake, and also checking that there are no leaks. So common sense things there. Okay, and finally, really quickly, because I appreciate we're running out of time, I wanted to cover how a longer question might be phrased here. So, human cells cannot make some of the amino acids which we need. We must attain these amino acids from our diet. Protein. Table shows the amounts of 4 of these amino acids present in microprotein in beef and in wheat. So this is a comparison of diets. So we've got 4 different types of amino acid here. Amino acids are used in proteins in our body, so for building proteins in our bodies. And then we've got the amount of each amino acid per kilogram per 100 grams in milligrams. So in mycoprotein, beef and wheat, and then the daily amount needed by a human. Okay. A book states that mycoprotein is the best source of amino acids for the human diet? Evaluate this statement. This is I think a 4-mark question. And it says, remember to include a conclusion in your evaluation. This is a longer question, and this is where you need to think and give your opinion. You need a conclusion in this. And by saying evaluate, they want you to interpret the information in this table and form a conclusion from it. So they're asking you to think quite hard for this question. So this is the question where I thought a mark scheme would be most handy. So 4 marks here. I have written a model answer here in the red. This is an answer that would get you the highest marks. I appreciate it's quite long. And then I've also got the mark scheme here. So any 3 from beef is best or better than mycoprotein. Mycoprotein is mainly better than wheat, and more wheat than in mycoprotein. So I appreciate that you can't see the table here. Well done, Grace. So beef is best and better than mycoprotein. Mycoprotein is often better than wheat. So you can see that there's a few different statements there that you could choose from that you would all have got from the table. So just by interpreting that data. So beef in general had higher amounts than mycoprotein, and mycoprotein in general had higher amounts than wheat. They've also put a point here that no other information is given on other amino acids or the costs of them, of those products. So the cost of beef, the cost of wheat products, and the cost of mycoprotein products. So obviously it's not just the nutrient that influences a buyer's decision. So you need to be thinking through those things. And finally, you got the last mark for giving that conclusion. So any conclusion is valid here, provided it reflects, your conclusions from the data, but you do need to give one. So, so you can say that the statement is incorrect because, or you can say that the statement is correct because. So a statement is incorrect because either it would be the best source for vegetarians, or for given amino acids, beef is the best source. Or 3 foods provide insufficient data to draw a valid conclusion. So you can say there's not enough data here for me to know. Any of those would be fine. So this is the thing to take confidence from, really. Okay, slightly whistle-stop tour there, so I'm going to leave that up while I just finish up for today. Okay. So I think that is everything for today. Well worth checking out the other videos from other lessons on the MyTutor online school if you're new, because you can catch up there if you need to. The next biology lesson is on Friday at 2 o'clock. So on Friday, we're going to start a new topic. We're going to look at homeostasis and the nervous system. So completely new, not something that we've talked about at all, really. And there will be a quiz. So that is Friday at 2 o'clock. If you think you need one-to-one support, do remember that MyTutor has a whole host of tutors that can provide one-to-one lessons, so you can have a look at that through the website. And keep an eye on the MyTutor online school timetable as well for the rest of the lessons. Okay, I hope that you have a good rest of your day and a good rest of your week, and I will see you on Friday. I can see a few questions about polls from MyTutor. So we did have a poll last week, but that was done, and well done for those that filled that in. That's brilliant. Okay, have a good rest of your week, everyone, and I hopefully will see you on Friday.